Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm your host, Trudy Rankin. And today I've got Michaťou Stawicki with me, and he's going to be sharing some of the wisdom that he's basically gotten the hard way around monetizing written content. He's published 19 books, and my hat's off to anybody who can write that many books. And he sold 85,000 copies of them. And when we were organizing this interview, he also mentioned that when he was diligent with his publishing schedule, he was making a couple of $100 on Medium, which is Medium is a place where people can get paid for their writing. And he's got so many articles out on the internet. I had a look at his website, and there are so many links out there to the writing that he's done. And so I just was so excited to have him here on the podcast, not just to talk about monetizing written content, but also to just share his journey about where he's gotten to in doing that as part of running a business. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Trudy.
So I think that I'd like to start out by asking you to talk a little bit about how you've gotten to where you are today. What did you used to do, and what made you want to be your own boss?
How I've gotten here. So in 2012, I read the book, The Slight Edge, and it says, success is a few simple disciplines repeated over time, which was a huge discovery for me. I thought success is something grand, luck, and so on. So it's not for me. I haven't even tried. But then I gave myself permission to try to succeed. So that was the first step. And I dived back into personal development. And while creating my personal mission statement, I rediscovered my passion for writing. I was back then in IT administrator. And I decided, okay, what made me to want to be my own boss? This a bit of my nature. I wasn't a bad employee, but still didn't feel like I fit in the corporate environment. And then I was a bad employee, because once I started to pursuing my own thing, I lost any passion for my IT job. But I also the thing that took me over the fence was I extrapolated my finances. I've been doing my budgets for couple of years, maybe 3. I extrapolated them to my retirement, and I was like, no, that's not a good picture. And what would took to really make it a good picture in the corporate world, only the leadership path, the executive path. And I'm now in charge of my own business, and I'm fine with that. It's okay, I'm the boss. But in the corporate environment, being responsible for people while in the corporate environment, for me, is the worst thing in the world, because you are not the boss there. They can tell you next day, okay, fire half of the people, because and this is not something I wanted to be part of. So I looked, that was another hobby of mine, salaries. I looked at the salaries in Poland, to reach the level I wanted to get. About 99% of people were below. You need to be executive or an entrepreneur. I had no clue how to become an entrepreneur. I had no clue even how to become a writer. I remember I always tell this story. It took me a month to figure out what writers do. They write.
We laugh, but it's actually an interesting thing that happens to a lot of people, because when they start to think about, well, what could I do? We tend to overlook the things that are the most obvious and think we have to get really fancy and special, and it's not necessary.
Maybe necessary. It's not. It may be very helpful. Okay, now I have content. I should get into marketing this content. I have so much of it. So that's helpful. But okay, writing was necessary to create this content.
Yes. Actually, it's an interesting thought as well, because if you think of all the skills that you need to have in order to successfully run an online business, writing's at the very core of it. Now, you may substitute speaking for writing, but you still have to have that ability to communicate very clearly with people. And usually writing is where people start. So that's interesting. Actually, I was smiling a little bit to myself because when I was in the corporate world, I worked with a lot of IT people, and I was fascinated by the number of them who actually had side hustles. They had some sort of entrepreneurial thing going on at the side because what they were doing at work just wasn't making them happy. And so they had this other thing that helped them sort of stay focused. They needed the work, the money from work coming in, but they had something was challenging them and that they could grow and dream about. That's really interesting. Really, really interesting that you've got an IT background. So once you figured out that you wanted to write, you had a passion for writing, and it was something that you could do as a way of earning money, how did you get to that place where you did start to earn money with your writing?
Yeah, it was trial and error. My original idea was writing fiction in Polish. So I wrote a short story, put it on the literature forum, and people were not impressed. And they were right. And I was like, okay, so to make money from this, and I had the urgency of making money of my side hustle because I had 3 kids, mortgage to pay. I was the sole provider, so my wife would not allow me to just play around. So after this feedback, I was like, okay, it would have taken me like 5 years to get proficient in writing, really, to write beautifully fiction. Nope, that's not an option. Then I tried a couple of blogs, and finally one of my friends mentioned after reading my blog post that that's a good subject for an ebook. And I started then exploring self-publishing on Amazon. Back then, I haven't even a clue that there is something like Amazon and this self-publishing revolution. In Poland, we are still in the Middle Ages when it comes to self-publishing. So I figured out how to really, writing was already covered, but how to produce a book and then put it on Amazon and then how to market it. And so I published my first book in May 2013, and it started selling a copy a day, and it was Kindle for 99 cents. So I got the first payment from Amazon in November. It was 11 euros, less than 1 hour of my overtime in my day job. But people were buying something I've written. I was like, that's awesome. They are willing to pay for something I wrote, and I'm total nobody. Nobody heard of me, and still they are finding my book and feel compelled to buy. Okay, I will do it more. So yeah.
How are people finding out that your book existed?
Back then, it was much easier on Amazon. It wasn't pay to play. So algorithms they think I did my homework as well. My first book is the title is A Personal Mission Statement, Your Roadmap to Happiness. So how to write your own personal mission statement. And there is a small market for that created by Stephen Covey. By the way, Covey Institute published identical book 2 weeks after I launched my book, which in the end was helping me out because then I was in others who bought and vice versa. But when I was researching, like there is a void in the market. So you still can do the same thing today. There is a void in the market, so you fill it with your book and people are searching for that, maybe not in millions, but in hundreds a month, and someone will be interested in getting your book.
And we talk about the 99 cents and you talk about 11 euros and that being an hour's worth of overtime, but it all adds up. It actually starts to add up and escalate over time. So what did you decide to do? What made you decide to continue with this? That was obviously getting the money was helpful, but how did you go about that process of deciding to do it again and choosing what topic you would write about?
At the very beginning, the topics I could write about were really from my personal experience and not really such a great market fit. However, my first 5 books, Personal Mission Statement, fitness book on how to lose your weight as a common folk, not a trainer, speed reading book, a book about my experience of tutoring my son in the primary school so he could improve his grades. And the 5th one was time management. And the 6th one was overcoming shyness. So out of those 6 different books, I didn't really pay much attention to the market other than the first one. I just knew, okay, I have the experience, I can write about it, and let's see. And I would say my success ratio was 50-50 to the market need. Okay, of course, the market do need weight loss because there is plenty of obese people, but there's also an onslaught of those books. So it's just one more memoir with some how to. And I found the same with this book about my kid. It wasn't a great success, but on the other hand, all of those books, those early books, sold thousands of copies throughout the years. Yeah, it's been a decade, so I had enough time really to amass. Even if it's 5 copies a month in a decade, it's hundreds and thousands of copies. That's one thing. The other thing, there were some hits, and those hits sold over 10,000 copies, including my first book. Yeah, and I would say that's normal. You shouldn't try to nail it, because you may or you may not. And you should be fine with you may not. There were times in my career that I weren't fine with it. I remember I published 2 bestsellers, then a flop, and I was crushed. And for about a year, I haven't published the next book. You need to be fine with, okay, you may nail it, you may not. It's the same. Like, I have very, very easygoing approach now to my answers on Quora. I don't care if they will make it or not, totally. And 80% of them are not making it. Crickets, maybe they will get, a couple hundred views over a decade. But because I have, over 1,600 answers right now on Quora, 20% of that is over 300, and they made millions of views. And James Clear has a great blog post about this, that in creative pursuits, it's not about this one greatest chisel piece of art. It's about practice. And the more you have, something will nail it. And then where you make money. My books are quite evenly spread. Like, I would say I'm making half of my money from half of my books. But I know my authors' friends who are making like 80% of money from 10% of their books. Yeah. And the rest, it's just out there, and it may be a lead for those authors because, okay, they actually found this book, that was their problem, but then they read the next 20. But still, it's normal. Like, the same we can see in the movie world. Like, not each movie is a blockbuster. Yeah. So you create and create and create, and one will become one.
Exactly. And I've got a couple of questions I want to follow up with, because it sounds like a really interesting model. And I have heard other people talk about using a self-publishing model as a way of creating a business and making a living. And you've talked about publishing on Amazon, and you've talked about Quora, and we've mentioned the fact that you also publish on Medium, which is medium.com. So 2 quick questions. One is, when you write your ebooks, how long do they tend to be? Like, as in, how many words do they tend to be?
They tend to be about 20,000 words, but really my approach is, and I think it's very, very common sense, you write as many words as you need to finish with the subject. So I have a few books, those 99-cent books that are less than 10,000 words, because like they are quick and dirty, deal with the problem, that's it. And I have some books which are like over 200 pages. So they are over 1,000 words. Like, it all depends on what you're writing and what's the objective. Just beating the dead horse for the sake of making the page count, it certainly doesn't work in nonfiction.
Yeah, yes, yeah, for sure. No waffle is allowed. You've got to make sure that all the words are needed. So another quick question. You do this as ebooks, and you do it on the Kindle, via the Kindle platform. So have you ever taken one of those and recorded yourself reading it and put it up on audible.com?
Oh gosh, not with my accent, but I turned several books into audiobooks. I just hired narrators and they recorded books for me. So right now I have 5 on Audible and 6 overall. There is a story. This one book was recorded by Dan right after recording the book. I think this was the last piece he ever done on this, and he didn't record the intro. So Bill says, okay, but we need the intro by Dan. He cannot do it anymore. Sorry. So it's not on Audible.
Oh, it's sad for him. And that means that you have to actually have somebody else completely re-record it. You can't just
No, I just don't care that it's not on Audible. It's on all the other platforms, because in the end he recorded also a few other of my books. So I took the intro and just added the title of this particular book. But because there was an intervention in that, like Audible is very strict about this.
Okay, fair enough. So that's interesting. And in terms of the process of writing an ebook, from the time that you come up to an idea to the time you get the thing live on the platform, how long does it usually take?
Okay, my first book took me exactly, I know it, I tracked it, 49 days from writing the first word to publishing the book. And it was when I was clueless. I was learning everything. So it's absolutely, right now I could write and publish a book in a month, no problem. Of course, I need to coordinate with my editors and cover design, which is more of the art than just writing and slapping it on Amazon. So I would say that will extend the process more than writing or editing. So my first book was very short, under 10,000 words. It helps, like with each stage. Writing take less, editing take less time, proofreading and so on. But still is when you know what you are doing, really, you can write one book a month, especially in the very narrow topics. Short, they don't need plenty of words.
It is definitely an interesting model. How much, or I'll rephrase my question, how long did it really take you to feel confident with the process of, once you'd written the book, of putting it up onto Amazon?
So it took me, I will say, as long as I needed to create a process, because for my first, I think 5, 6 books, maybe even 5 or 6 books, it was okay, I will write about this, maybe I will do some market research, maybe not, maybe let's do it. Yeah, I can do it, it's my calling and so on. And then finally I got some tools under my belt. So I started from outlining process, which helped me immensely to write and put the book faster on the market. And it's not just outlining, it's about marketing as well from the day zero. Before you just have the idea. So then you answer dozens questions about how to market book, what's unique about it, who is target audience and so on. And then you start writing. So you start with the end in mind and it helps a lot. Another tool I found was just very simple way to figure out the features and benefits of my books. So then I can write a book description. Then I got, for example, the formula for writing a book description from my friend, and I stick to it because it's very straightforward, step by step, and it's working. I have also a book advertising business, and the first thing I'm doing for my customers is telling them how to rewrite the book description according to that formula. So with time, I collected those tools, and with those tools, it's so much easier to just have a process. Even though it's a creative process, it's still a process.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, because you started this process of writing books when you were still an employee. How long did it take you before you were confident enough that you were bringing in enough money so that you could actually stop being an employee and be your own boss?
It took me forever. So after 5 years, I scaled down to half-time in my day job, not because I was confident, but because my supervisor was just sick of me. And I was mentioning to her going half-time, and she was like, Michał, you are miserable here. Come on, you need to do this, period. Next month. So I was afraid. I still wasn't ready, despite the fact I was making like half of my salary or even more back then in my side hustle. But of course, it was volatile, like every entrepreneurship pursuit. But yeah, it actually materialized that after a month, I was making this half-time salary, just did. And then we were like, it took me I practically replaced my salary with half-time side hustle. And the next year I went quarter-time, and I could went full-time back then, but my wife wasn't happy about this. That's one. And also there were perks, benefits. And in Poland, when you are an employee, your employer pays all the social security fees, and now I have to pay them myself. So it's $500 a month. So I saved those $500. But yeah, I could, after 6 years, I could really go full time on my own. But of course, each story is very, very individual. Like I have a friend who is very successful. He quit his job. I think he even took a bank loan to live for a year, and he got very serious about his education as an entrepreneur and writer. And yeah, after 2 years, he could live off his writing. And now he is actually one of the very few people I know who have this Hollywood lifestyle. Writer, we think, okay, this is the guy on the beach doing nothing, writing something, royalties are coming in. Yeah. So he's one of the few men I know that he's actually doing it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to think that everybody who tried to do that, all of us entrepreneurs would be able to have that kind of a lifestyle, but it's not very realistic, is it?
Yes, it's not.
Not really. So thinking about the process of writing books again, these days, now that you have control of your time and you have got all this experience under your belt, how do you decide what you're going to write about next?
It's the wrong question, because I'm not writing books right now. I'm focused on my business and really the shipping of the paperbacks. Paperbacks are making over half of my royalties. It really broke the whole machine I had on Amazon, and I would have needed to do it again, which I'm not ready really to do. And now it's a pay-to-play field. Yeah, I know how to do it, because actually I'm one of several experts on that, but still, yeah, I will build so going back to my business, it's book advertising, it's royalties, writing, and coaching, which I discovered less than 2 years ago. And I'm hitting it hard because I love it. So I'm not writing.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So I understand that you're not writing anything at the moment. So what you've done is you've taken all of that knowledge that you've built up over the years about how to do that process, and you've now turned it into a business where you help other people learn how to do it. Is that correct?
Not exactly, but close to. Like I specialize only in ads on Amazon for books.
Mm-hmm.
But it also involves some marketing, like I told you about book descriptions. And of course, I know the whole process I could coach a person from before you have the idea to having a book out. So sometimes I'm helping friends or referrals of my customers, but most of the time we are just focused on the ads on Amazon. This is what we do as a business.
So I'm a little confused then exactly about what your business said. You say you're focused on Amazon. So exactly what are you doing via Amazon to bring in revenue?
Yeah, now even a traditionally published author can advertise their own books on Amazon.
Yep.
Because Amazon allows that. They give you the advertising dashboard on Facebook. You have your own account. And the best thing about this, you can give someone else access to that account. So this is me. I'm having access to their accounts. I'm advertising their books.
I get it. That makes so much sense. So basically other people are doing the writing, and you're helping to make sure that their writing gets found, their books get found. by being really good at marketing on Amazon and using Amazon as a way of marketing the books. I get it. So just remind me, how long have you been just doing that aspect of it?
Since 2017.
Okay, so a fair while. And just a curiosity question then, doing what you do now versus writing, do you enjoy one or the other more?
Yeah, writing I enjoy more. I have so many hats, and now I have small team, so I delegated out some of them. But still, we recently did, I think this year or the end of the last year, how was it called? Key areas, responsibilities. So my people have 1, maybe 2 areas. I have 9. So I need to really get it out and focus on the things I like. But this is the reality of building a solo business and being a scrappy entrepreneur. Yeah, I don't have $1 million to hire someone and do this for me. I'm building it from scratch.
Yes, that's one of those things about being an entrepreneur. You've got all the many hats that you have to wear, that you have to put on. And it's a whole process, isn't it? Going from just doing everything yourself and then slowly handing things over to people and doing it in such a way that it frees your time up so that you can actually focus on the things that are either going to bring in the most money for the business or the things that you really enjoy. And hopefully those two things match, but they don't always. So it's a really interesting, I think, business model. And it's the dream that a lot of people have of being able to make a living out of creating content and doing it in a way that lets people have a bit of a life, a bit of a lifestyle. I guess from my perspective, I think that the experiences that you've had and the learning that you've had to go through in order to be able to do that are really, really useful and valuable for people. So if people are interested in finding out more about either working with you or more about what you've done and some of the experiences that you have had, where would they go?
My blog is called expandbeyondyourself.com. And if you go to expandbeyondyourself.com/outlining, you will get my outlining process for free. And there are some links to blog posts and resources for writers.
Okay, no, I'll make sure I put those in the show notes so that people can go there and have access to them.
I'm on Twitter. Book is more personal. I still have my business account there, but I'm not interacting very hard with it. On LinkedIn, it's really my business coach person. And I also have my business website, resurrectingbooks.com. Yeah. So I said it aloud, so I finally need to fix my landing page.
I know that feeling. You're going, now people know that it's there. They're going to go and have a look and oh dear. So it's time to go and fix it up. Michaťo, it's been really, really great having you on the podcast. And once again, thank you so much for being here. It's just been really, really interesting listening to what you've had to say.
Thank you very much, Trudy. It was an honor to share whatever pieces of wisdom I have with your audience. Thank you.